For joining in for today's webinar. This is Shyam Rajaputra, your host for today's webinar on SAP FMS, what's new in the fashion solution. We see others joining in. We'll just give them a minute and we'll start with our webinar. Thank you. Thank you once again. This is Shyam Rajaputra, your host for today's webinar on SAP FMS, what's new in the fashion solution. Our speaker for today's webinar is Rahul Singh. He is the practice lead at Prosoft for Fashion and Retail, and he has more than 16 years of experience working with SAP in fashion, retail, manufacturing, and automotive industries. He has played several leadership roles in multiple SAP retail and AFS implementations, and have worked with Fortune 500 retailers, and have extensively worked on SAP F&R, FMS, Retail, and POS technologies. We request all the attendees to post their questions on the questions tab on the right-hand side, and we'll address them during the end of the session. Rahul, back to you.
Thanks, Shyam.
Yep.
Thanks, Shyam. Just want to make sure that you can hear me properly.
Yep, we can. Thank
you. Okay. So, good morning, everybody. And it just turned noon on the East Coast, so good afternoon to everyone who is joining us from the East Coast. The intent of our conversation today, the intent of the webinar today is to talk about FMS. We will be talking about FMS at an intro level, because this is one of the first sessions for FMS, and we will be having more and more subsequent sessions that will take us into the details of the fashion solution and how it supports the fashion processes, fashion business processes in the new application that's coming out of SAP. Again, like I said, the intent is to keep it at a high level. I assure you that I'll try to keep it very business specific and use as little technical lingo as possible to make sure that the common group around us is able to understand the business processes that are getting impacted as part of FMS coming into the picture. And at the same time, please feel free to keep asking the questions. Sean is going to collect all the questions, and we'll answer the questions that we can today, or else we'll follow up with our answers once we collect for the questions that we haven't been able to answer today. So I'll start with the introductions. My name is Rahul Singh. I've been working with SAP for the last 17 years. It's close to 17 years, not completely 17 years. I started my career around July of 2000. Started working in the automotive industry, and after finishing up master's school in Syracuse, started working in fashion and lifestyle. I got to see the newer SAP retail products in the late 2000s, and I also got to see the newer fashion solutions that came out of the retail products in mid to late 2013. The intent of our conversation today in FMS is to make sure that we introduce to you the solution that SAP brings as a pre-packaged, in a packaged format to support fashion and retail brands, fashion and retail manufacturers. But at the same time, our intent is to also showcase what we can bring to the table and capture as many thought-provoking questions from your side as we can. We at Prosoft, we have been in the market for the last 20 years, 20 plus years. It was established in 1995. We have been a global IT services provider. We have a few, we are across the globe. We have a few offices in Chicago, India, and other places across the globe. Our key focus is towards ERP and the integration of ERPs, digital as well as business analysis. And we focus on the retail, manufacturing, financials, and energy sectors. Our intent is to bring SAP in a very simplistic fashion to the mid-market retailers and fashion manufacturers, as well as the other areas that we support, including manufacturing, financial services, energy, and utilities. Our services are across quite a few areas, like I just spoke, business enterprises, enterprise solutions like SAP, integration applications, digital commerce, and analysis. We have been working in quite a few areas like S4HANA, HANA, integration of HANA, and now FMS also. These are a few of our clients that we have worked in fashion and retail, as well as oil and gas and manufacturing. Quite a few of our clients that we constantly work with, and we are present in many of them right now. Moving on to the topic of our conversation today. What I'd like to do is I'd like to talk about the fashion solution as an introduction for a few minutes, and then go over the newer functions that are part of the SAP FMS solution, as well as the capabilities that we bring to the table as we work with our as we work with the fashion manufacturers and retailers. I would also like to leave the last 15 minutes for any questions that would come up. Please feel free to keep sending those questions to Sean, and please keep typing them out. I'd definitely like to answer those questions if possible in those 15-20 minutes. If not, then we'll reach back to you. Now, coming into the introduction of the fashion solution. The new FMS solution, which stands for fashion, which stands for fashion manufacturing, the new fashion solution, or the fashion management solution, is basically an integration of the wholesale, retail, and manufacturing functions. Now, the way the traditional business model for fashion retailers used to work was they had a wholesale component to it, they had a retail component to it, and they had a manufacturing component to it. Now, each of these components worked on different systems. So the retail side of the business had a different system supporting the retail solution. The wholesale side of the business that catered to the bigger retailers had a different solution. And manufacturing had its own solution, either the MES solution or other solutions that supported the manufacturing component. Now, because there were multiple different solutions, it ended up being siloed processes, and in many cases, the same process was being worked on in 3 different systems on 3 different sets of data. So that added to a lot of complexities other than keeping multiple COEs to support those applications. It also added to the duplication of data. As an example, master data for wholesale systems would be quite different from master data for retailing systems. But essentially and practically, the master data for that manufacturer was one and the same. They had to maintain those master data in separate systems in a separate format, and at the end of the day, sync those systems to keep the entire supply chain in sync. Now that added a lot of complication to the integration of the business processes. The intent was to service the customer, but also was to get a near real-time view of the inventory and business processes. Now, keeping that in mind, it always made sense to have one solution that catered to the business processes of the wholesaler, the retailer, and the manufacturer. And that one solution got transitioned over from SAP Retail AFS into a new solution called the Fashion Management Solution. And that's where the traditional business model being distributed by its processes in multiple different systems, having multiple different master data objects or even transactional data objects working in silos, had to be moved together into one solution. Now, the industry always wanted this kind of a solution because they wanted a quicker time to market for their fashion products. They had higher consumer expectations. The consumer wanted the products faster. The demand of the consumer had to be read much faster and then be sent to manufacturing to get the products ready on time. And with omni-channel coming into the picture, there was a lot of need to converge all these multiple channels, be it wholesale, retail, e-com, even mobile commerce, into one location. That multiplied with social media, big data, and cloud computing added a lot of complexity to those processes, which made it necessary for the fashion manufacturers to move from a disconnected environment to an integrated environment. Now, the disconnected environment ensured that there was inaccuracy in supply and demand, versus the integrated environment made sure that the demand-driven supply chain was integrated both downstream and upstream, right from the customer to the manufacturing facilities to the retail stores and to the wholesale components of it. So again, the intent was to move towards an integrated solution, get rid of that disconnected solution. And personally, when I used to work with different fashion manufacturers, and when I saw them run a different retail solution versus a different wholesale solution versus a different manufacturing solution, and in many cases, a third-party warehouse management solution. With that many solutions and that many COEs coming into the picture, there was a lot of need to integrate these solutions, and all the interfaces that integrated these solutions caused a lot of havoc, which impacted the customer because the real-time data that had to be sent over to the customer wasn't ready at the right time, which ultimately had an impact to the business governance and the customer, and it also affected the customers' loyalty in other areas. So it was always intended to move towards an integrated solution. And that is where FMS came into the picture. Now, the intent of bringing in FMS was to make sure that a vertically integrated company worked seamlessly across its process lines. So if it was a manufacturing process, it could integrate with its retail processes. If there was a demand in the retail stores, the demand in the retail stores would get seamlessly converted and integrated into the manufacturing production lines. The retail stores could visually see what's being manufactured and when it would be ready to be delivered on the stores onto the racks for the customers to come in on time. And that included the new season introductions, that included the promotions, that even included the pricing and promotions piece of it. So not only logistical or physical processes, but also supporting processes like pricing, promotions, and actually rebates, most of them getting integrated throughout the supply chain. That gave a lot of benefit to that entire value chain, that the manufacturer and the wholesaler and the retailer being tightly integrated into one vertical company intended to have. With solutions like AFS, with solutions like SAP Retail, with solutions like WMS, these three were distributed across three different solutions, three different COEs, three different data sets. But with FMS coming into the picture, all of these got integrated into one single silo, which made it possible to have one set of data, one set of master data, one set of transactional data that connected to that master data, one set of customer demand patterns, which led to much better forecast accuracies. So right from the stores, right from the e-com, right from the wholesale to the manufacturing facilities. So at the manufacturing facility, when they ran their capacity plannings, they knew the capacity coming in from the retail stores. They knew the capacity coming in from their wholesale, and they could segment their stocks to supply their customers based on the customer classification or whatever it was, but they could satisfy the customers based on the retail channel, based on the wholesale channel, based on the e-com channel, or even the mobile channel. So that's why the industry needed a vertically integrated solution, and that is where FMS brings in the biggest bang for the buck. It brings in a vertically integrated solution that integrates the manufacturing, wholesale, and retail processes into one system. And that system now runs on HANA, the in-memory database, which makes near real-time processing of data feasible. Now, manufacturing is still being worked on by SAP, but as far as the wholesale and retail components, they are pretty much there. There are certain set of manufacturing processes that are related to SAP PPPI that have still to be developed. And I'll take you through those slides as we go through the sections in here. But the rest of the components that enable a vertically integrated supply chain are in there. And they are running on HANA, which enables a faster turnaround of the data, a faster turnaround on the plans, which increases the customer satisfaction and gives a single view of stock or a single view of demand for the customer in one system. Now, the way FMS was enabled was it was built on SAP Retail, and additional AFS functionalities were added on the retail solution. So let me do one thing. Let me go back a step and then come back onto this slide. What I wanted to say was the fashion solution started with AFS, and AFS catered to the manufacturing and the wholesale components. For retailers, SAP had another solution called SAP Retail. And in the past, the AFS solution and the retail solution had to be integrated through either ALE connectors or iDocs or interfaces, whichever it was. And the reason to connect them was to make sure that the demand in the wholesale channel and the demand in the retail channel was well integrated. The issue is that AFS ran on the standard SAP solution, which ran on materials and variants and variant configuration. And the retail solution ran on a completely different master data model, which was built on articles. Variants, not variant configuration, but variants. And the article master model was very different from the material master model. So these two models had to be integrated through pre-built interfaces. That caused a lot of grief when the integration failed and the data wasn't available near real time for processing, for transactional processing. That is where SAP started moving away from, I'm not saying moving away from FMS, but AFS, but what I'm trying to say is that's where SAP started designing their SAP Retail system and evolving out of that SAP Retail platform and adding fashion functionalities into SAP Retail with newer AFS features, with new features that added more functionality to the master data model on SAP Retail. By harmonizing the processes that were retail specific and harmonizing them to ensure that they also cater to the fashion manufacturers and wholesalers. So what SAP did was they took the SAP Retail platform, added AFS functionalities, added new features, added new harmonization of the processes to cater to the retail as well as wholesale segments, and built a solution called FMS. Now, FMS can only run on HANA. There are multiple methods of deployment, and we'll talk about that in a subsequent slide, but FMS can only run on HANA right now and caters to retail, wholesale, and manufacturing, like I said earlier. Now the way the technical architecture looks like is you would implement the ERP on HANA. You would activate SAP Retail for that ERP on HANA. And once SAP Retail got activated, you would start activating FMS components on HANA. Now, once the FMS components are activated, the core of the retail solution starts transforming to support more and more fashion functionalities like seasonality, like stock segmentation, stock segregation, and ATP. So those logics that really didn't exist or were not really needed by retailers are now much more evolved in the SAP Retail solution, the SAP Retail solution that now has FMS installed on it. Now, SAP HANA, SAP FMS can be installed on the cloud or on premise. That depends on how the customer wants to install, but the solution by itself is pretty flexible to support retail components, fashion components, wholesale components. But that's how the technical architecture looks like for FMS and retail. Moving on to the next slide. The FMS features that were released as part of release 1.0 were the BAS for stock transport orders. I'm not going to read to the slide, but these are the features that got released in version 1.0, and in release version 2.0, the intent is to add new functions related to two-step allocation run, configurable listings. Right now, the solution that we are running is FMS 1.0 Service Pack 07. And the current solution scope relates to the master data components of variants. The biggest change that we see with FMS coming into the picture is that in retail, the two-dimensional master data model is now transitioning over to a three-dimensional master data model, not similar to the grid, but having similar functionalities. Now, the grid functionality in AFS was around classification. A similar functionality exists in retail. It can capture the three-dimensional properties like style, color, and size, or inseam. So the functionality in FMS exists to capture the three dimensions, but it's much more enhanced, much more easier to maintain and use as compared to the AFS functionalities of the three-dimensional grid. Most of the clients where we implemented AFS, we suggested keeping one of the attributes at the material level and the rest of the two variant attributes as classification objects. But because article master model for FMS is a little bit more simplified, that restriction, because of the complication that it brought, isn't there in FMS. It makes it a little bit easier to maintain three-dimensional variants in FMS as compared to AFS and use them in purchase orders or sales orders going forward. Demand and supply planning has been added. MRP on HANA with fashion components are running much faster than what we would have expected for MRP to run at the discrete level. Most of the fashion manufacturers have quite a huge bill of materials, and running MRP for every component of that bill of material would have been a stress on the SAP retail system. But with MRP running on HANA, it's been very flexible actually to plan at the discrete level of the bill of materials. Now MRP running on S/4HANA is making it a little bit more optimized as compared to what it would have been if it was running on ECC. Procurement and inventory as well as sales and distribution, quite a few changes are coming in the purchase orders as well as sales orders. You can track the demand for that season for that collection, for that theme, right from the sales order to the purchase order to that inventory in stock, so that you can segment your inventory for a certain specific season, for a certain specific collection and a theme, versus a separate season, year, season, collection, theme. You can see the demand patterns for that specific season, specific collection, specific theme. You can also segment the stock for that specific, for a specific customer in a specific season, year. So quite a few permutations and combinations are available through variant configuration, through the season collection themes objects in FMS. As far as the business process harmonization goes, what SAP is trying to do is they're trying to build the harmonization in such a way that processes that were specific to retail have enhanced properties now to support processes in wholesale and manufacturing. A very good example is pricing and promotions. Another good example is ATP. Retailers really didn't need ATP because the stock was in front of the stores. Or let me say it this way: retailers really didn't need ATP up to the nth level of detail, because the stock was there in the store, and if it was there, it could be sold. But with the manufacturing and wholesale components, you have to book the ATP in advance. You have to make sure that the ATP goes down to the production lines to get manufactured and get sent over to a specific customer. So those business process harmonizations, SAP is picking up those specific objects and harmonizing those business processes. What we want to do is, in subsequent webinars, we want to take you through those specific business process harmonizations and talk a little bit more in detail as to what are the changes coming in with master data. That's another harmonization area. What are the changes that are coming in with pricing and promotions? Pricing and promotions that run on a sales order are very different than what we used to run in the SAP retail package meant for retailers. So there is a harmonization going on over there too. How does it? We also want to talk in a subsequent seminar on a webinar on how does ATP get affected when we run it on FMS. We will be talking about a lot of those harmonization objects, but for now, what I was trying to convey is SAP Retail with a fashion components added to it becomes FMS, and there are quite a few harmonization objects currently running to make sure that the harmonization is optimal. Now, SAP FMS and Retail, the solution landscape looks like this right now. It runs on HANA. You have a ERP component that becomes FMS, and the FMS component connects with CAR, POS DTA. The older version used to be called POS DM. Now we call it POS DTA. What it stands for, it's POS, point of sale data transformation, point of sale data management tool. We get all the T-logs over there. We aggregate the T-logs. We integrate the T-logs with ECC through an SLC connector versus we can also use other service-based connectors to connect it with ECC. Now, CAR gets connected to other real-time applications, including mobile applications, including FNR applications. So the entire FMS landscape that runs on HANA can have ECC running on it, can have CAR running on it, can have other components like FNR, PMR, mobile-based applications running on it. You also have the ability to have one HANA solution maintaining both these two systems, or you can split your HANA application to run ERP on HANA and CAR on HANA Live separately. So there are multiple combinations of how you want to use the solutions running on FMS. Pretty exciting times for SAP Retail. A lot of changes coming into the market right now. What I want to do from here is transition over to the newer functions in SAP FMS. Before we go into the newer functions, I kind of wanted to show you how the concept of the solution worked. In 2011, SAP started working towards a vision for FMS with a proof of concept moving into the wholesale retail segment and into manufacturing and the entire ERP process. So by 2015, 2016, the FMS package is getting solidified, but it started way back. The story started way back in 2011. And I kind of was lucky to have worked with one of the biggest fashion retailers and manufacturers where we implemented the Fashion Pack, which was around 2010, which was the precursor to the entire integration of the wholesale, retail, and manufacturing channels, because nobody would have wanted to run 3 different solutions and maintaining 3 different COEs or solutions that really didn't talk the same language. They had different master data models, they had different transactional data models. So the concept of solution moved in there. FMS is still solidifying in the market. It's pretty well solidified for wholesale and retail functions. Manufacturing functions are getting built up. The intent was to get it ready in 2015. Definitely, it's moving. The arrow is moving a little bit towards the right. Manufacturing is intended to come out pretty soon, but right now it's not there yet. We are still working on version 1.7, Service Pack 07. Many of the clients have implemented version 1.6, which seems to be a very stable version. Service Pack 07 is also a very stable version now. Now, most of the clients that I work with, they ended up asking me the question that I'm trying to show you on the slide. How can we migrate to SAP FMS? Does it have to run always on HANA? Does it? Do I have to run AFS and FMS in parallel? Do I have to upgrade my retail system to move into FMS? So these questions kept on coming in. So I kind of took the slide from one of the previous slides that I had previous decks that I had looked into. And this answered the questions in pretty much detail. Today, the migration paths for FMS, today SAP has given kind of 4 different migration paths to FMS. In the subsequent webinars, we want to talk about each of those migration paths in detail. The most common migration path that we are coming across are from an existing AFS solution to an FMS solution. And the biggest complexity is the interim period. So you might end up, in the interim period, you might end up with 2 different solutions. One FMS solution, the other one the AFS solution. And the complexity is about which business processes to run in what solution and how to keep them in sync. So those complexities we will discuss in a separate webinar. But for now, the biggest questions are coming up around how do we transition our existing AFS solution into an FMS solution. So there is a connector that SAP provides, an ALE connector, as well as a transitioning tool, or like DTMT, that allows you to convert your AFS data into retail-ready data. And the reason I'm saying retail-ready is because FMS runs on retail data. It runs on the article master model, which is more like a retail data. So you have the capability to migrate the AFS data into FMS, run these 2 systems in transition mode for some time, and then when most of the processes have moved over to FMS, you can cut the threads to AFS and completely move over all your processes into FMS. And it depends from client to client when you want to cut them, but it's a choice, and the choice has to be taken by looking at those processes as to what processes you want to leave in AFS versus which ones you want to migrate to FMS. Now, there is a common misconception that you have to implement retail to activate FMS. That may not be true. You can always activate FMS without retail, and you can activate retail down the line. So you also have that option. The only restriction with that option is that you'll be getting your wholesale platform for HANA, which may be true in certain cases for certain clients. You can do that. Many clients who are using retail want to move from retail into FMS. So there's another option, like option number 4, where you maintain your retail and you have your legacy database, and what you want to do is you want to migrate your legacy database onto HANA. So that would be a technical migration, a technical upgrade of retail running on HANA. And once retail running on HANA has stabilized, you start activating the FMS functions with retail running on HANA, which seems to be a very standard approach to go towards FMS. It's pretty well, I think it's pretty well tested. Right? There are a few clients who have done this piece, and that would enable all the functions for all the omni-channel businesses that you would be looking for: manufacturing, wholesale, e-com, retail. So different migration paths on HANA. We intend to talk a little bit more for each of these functions in a separate webinar. In that separate webinar, we'll take you through how you want to do it. These are the migration paths that SAP suggests, but in that webinar, we'll take you to the details on how you can achieve success using one of these migration paths. Moving on to the next slide, in the Service Pack 07, a few new functions have been added, and those functions are key for certain manufacturers and retailers. The biggest benefit would be coming in from a season management piece, in which at the master data level, you can segment your stock. You can define that which articles are relevant for what seasons, what collections, and what themes, and then you can segment your stock to be inventorized in those seasons, collections, and themes. When you have a sales order coming in, you have the option to pick from that specific season, collection, and theme, and not from a previous season or a future season. You can also segmentize your stock based on the customer. So you can pick that stock for that specific customer only without dipping into the stock that was meant for another customer. So that kind of saves that kind of makes sure that your customer performance metrics are hitting their maxes. Now, the next new function that was added was around value-added services. Newer functions are getting added in the value-added services piece, but most of the ticketing, most of the milas, most of the cycle countings used to happen through value-added services, through third-party companies coming in and doing it for the retailers or the manufacturers. So these value-added services ensured that the processes were captured in the system, and they were captured accurately to make sure that the cost of the labor, the cost of the products that went into building those tickets or working on the cycle countings were captured appropriately in that one system. Another new function that is big for the manufacturers is around order allocation run. Like I spoke about seasonality, you also have the capability to segment your stock in buckets and run allocations specific to those buckets, ensuring that your customers have the right allocation and get the stock on time. Your customers can be your retail stores, your customers can be your bigger customers that you supply your stocks to. But the intent is to ensure that your order allocation run is capable enough to run at the customer level, and you can max your customer performance metrics by giving them the right quantities at the right times. Another big feature which personally I was looking for was around grouping purchase requisitions. Now with the variants coming into, with the generics and the variant articles coming into the picture, what happened was when SAP ran the MRP, they created multiple different purchase requisitions for each of those variants based on the demand when it came. But that kind of caused a lot of havoc because you had the same article, you had the same generic article with multiple different children across different purchase requisitions, which caused a lot of confusion. So what's happening right now is you have the capability to group those variant articles under one purchase requisition. A small change, but means a lot to the business community that's using fashion solutions. You have the capability to group all those purchase requisitions. You have the capability to group all those variants onto one purchase requisition and then create the purchase order and send it to the vendor to ship the goods over to you, to your DCs, to your retail stores, wherever you have. If you have DSDs activated, you can enable that too. Now, characteristic value conversions is a little more technical. What it means is you have the capability to maintain different values, different variants for the same characteristic for different regions. A very good example is color. In Europe, in Great Britain, what you would call is COLOUR versus in America you would call COLOR. So these different parameters for characteristics, also although small ones, but meant a lot to the business community. And with these characteristic value conversions, you have the capability to add in transformation layers to visibly to show a different object visually in different regions without really creating a new characteristic to support that requirement. So these new functions are getting added to FMS, and newer functions are getting planned with FMS 2.0, which would mean integration to enhanced warehouse management systems and other new functions that are related to ATB. Now, at Prosoft, what we have done is we have our own fashion retail solution, and we have kind of worked on the pre-packaged SAP FMS solution. We have added our own flavor to the out-of-the-box solution by adding a set of PMO tools, adding a set of pre-configured solution packs, which act like an accelerator. We also have bolt-on tools, custom bolt-on tools, that the programs that we have written, as well as the reports that we have written, which we think would be helpful as a start. It would add a little bit of an acceleration to the project, saving timeline and cost. But that's what we add to the pre-packaged solution that SAP already brings to the market. The ones that we have worked on right now are around, like I said, around the PMO tools, which are, and we are focusing on a very agile-based methodology to implement the solution. I'll talk a little bit more about the agile-based methodology that we use in the next few slides. But the intent is to make sure that we have a mature DevOps and RunOps capability model. We use Agile to implement the solution. We kind of work with SAP Activate, but we have added our own flavor to it. We also have pre-developed project management templates to deploy and track SAP solutions. It ensures that the client can see the actual product taking its form within weeks, rather than them to wait for the test for the entire DevOps cycle to take place for the next 8-9 months before they can actually see the solution. Our intent is to show the solution much earlier in the stage so that the client can see it, evaluate it, and then move forward. Moving on to the next tool, we also have a pre-configured tool for SAP FMS and Retail. It's built on the best practices. What we do is we take the SAP best practices, and wherever we see that the best practices have certain components missing, we have enhanced that component. We have added new features like direct store delivery enablement. We have added new features like pricing, price promotions, workbench. We also have a master data accelerator for FMS and IS Retail. What it does is it readily converts your data, be it a legacy system or be it an AFS system. It takes the data and converts it into an SAP retail data and allows you to a faster data conversion. So it does the entire ETL process. It will allow you to extract the data. You can write your own code to we'll write the code as we work with you to transform the data. If there is a logic, if there is a mapping logic, or if there is another logic, to transform the data, and then we load the data into SAP Retail or SAP FMS. We also have a global inventory hub in SAP CAR and HANA, and this global inventory hub would be a big deal because it doesn't really exist today. It exists in SAP BW, but it doesn't exist in CAR. So if you intend on installing CAR, the inventory hub enables you to have one view of stock for all your channels. So if you have, for example, if you have your manufacturing processes still running in a different solution and you are in the interim stage where you run 2 different applications, you have this hub that allows you to view your manufacturing stock, your wholesale stock, your retail stock, your e-com stock, all of them in one place, and enables a faster run for the ATP. It also connects with analytical tools, allows you to have near real-time sales and inventory analytics, runs on CAR. The data migration tool is an enhancement. It's a bolt-on. You can use this bolt-on independently, or you can also use this bolt-on as an addition to the DTMT tool that SAP provides. What it does is it helps you migrate the data from an AFS solution to an FMS solution or a retail solution. The data migration tool, I have a few slides that I'm going to take you through them, but it enables you to do master data transformation, planning data transformation, purchase requisitions, orders, sales orders, inventory, etc., and financial data. SAP Pricing and Promotions Hub is a very enhanced tool. It's very complex. I don't want to talk about pricing in detail in this session. We'll take you through a separate webinar on pricing and promotions. Essentially what it does is it allows you, it provides one hub in which you can maintain your pricing for your store groups, for your Northeast store groups versus your Southeast store groups. What it also does is it allows you to maintain promotions, events specific to those customers, specific to those store groups. We also have our central IDOC management tool that helps you manage your interfaces, but we'll talk more about that in subsequent sessions. Our DevOps and RunOps capability model is built around, moving on to the next slide, our DevOps and RunOps capability model is built around ensuring that we take you right from the project initiation to the project closure. It includes a thorough analysis of what processes should be implemented, how you would thread those processes, how you would implement those processes, how you would test those processes, and finally how you would maintain those processes throughout the end-to-end implementation cycle. The Agile methodology that we were talking about, that I spoke about a few minutes ago, and I know I'm running a little bit late right now, but I'll finishing up in a minute. The Agile-based methodology that we were talking about a few minutes ago takes care of the entire implementation project. It takes care of the project prep, solution design and architecture, which means sizing the system, getting the solutions ready, getting the bill of material for the solutions that are getting implemented ready, implementing the enterprise structure, master data, and all other business functions that need to happen. Now, the way we work is we have 7-week cycles. We call them trains, and every 7-week cycle, we will be developing, and whatever is ready and tested, gets on the train and moves on to the next system, most probably the QA system, where it gets further tested. So that's how we try to maintain the Agile methodology. The benefit to the client is at the end of every 7th week, you will be able to see some tangible work effort moving into the next system. You will be able to see and measure our work efforts in a very agile fashion, like the name Agile sounds. Moving on to the next slide, our pre-configured tool sets include business processes. They are more detailed than what SAP provides. We have kind of worked on those business processes. We have worked on the configuration of those business processes. We take you through them. The intent is to start the project. The intent is to kind of get a head start on the project. We'll show you those business processes as we work with you, and we'll kind of do a gap fit with you, making the implementation a little bit more agile. All of these are accelerators now. The Retail Master Data Accelerator that we spoke about a few minutes ago enables you to convert your master data. Convert your master data from your legacy application, convert your master data from your AFS application into retail or FMS. It allows you to go through an ETL logic, transformation and load. The Retail Data Migration tool allows you to connect your SAP Retail system to an AFS system or any other legacy system. It's a very handy tool that works along with DTMT, or you can use them individually to enable the integration of AFS into retail. You can use this tool as an interim integrator between FMS and retail, FMS Retail and AFS, or you can use this tool as only a conversion layer and then maintain your own integration. Now, towards the end of value proposition, Hello? Sean, you can hear me, right?
Yeah, I was not able to hear you for close to 30 seconds.
Yeah, so I noticed that, but you can hear me now, right? So I'll
Yeah,
continue.
now we can.
So
Sure.
the value proposition that we bring to the table is we have a domain expertise in fashion and retail. We bring in the domain process experts with deep knowledge in that area. We're focused on FMS retail and AFS solution delivery. We'll bring in the pool of resources, get the job done for you, onshore and a mix of onshore and offshore resources to make sure that the implementation model is optimally managed. As well as when we come to the table, we'll bring in the fashion and retail solution specific accelerators. So I think that's what we have for now. I'd like to open it up for any questions that have been proposed so far.
Sure. Thanks, Rahul, for the detailed presentation. The forum is now open for any questions. And we will be more than happy to address them. Please feel free to type your questions in the questions tab. We'll take the first one. For a customer who is currently running on AFS, how can the AFS data be converted onto FMS?
Right. So that's actually a very good question. And the conversion of data for a customer running on AFS onto FMS is enabled by using the DTMT, Data Transport and Migration Tool, a tool that SAP proposes. Now, we also have another tool like the DMT, which enables you to transform the data from AFS into retail or vice versa. But the answer is that the DTMT tool and the DMT tool can work together and enable that integration.
Sure, thank you. Is there a migration approach provided by SAP for clients to move from SAP Retail to SAP HANA?
You mean SAP Retail running on legacy applications and moving on to SAP HANA, right? So yes, there is a migration approach, and it's a technical upgrade. It's a technical migration approach for clients moving in from say SAP Retail onto SAP HANA, SAP Retail on HANA. There is a technical migration approach. We can have a separate webinar to talk about those details.
Sure, thank you. Is the SAP FMS master data different from AFS master data?
Yes, it is very different, and that is where the catch is. The SAP FMS master data is built on the SAP article master model, and the SAP AFS master data is built on the material master model. Now they are completely separate models. The issue with them being two separate models is that the subsequent transactions also use these two different models. So for example, the SAP sales order transaction on a standard SAP solution or on an AFS solution uses the master data model, versus in FMS uses the article master model. So the conversion for all the objects, and I'm saying all the objects because all the objects touch master data, is very critical. So as we do the implementations, the clients have to be very, we will be working with the client, but the client has to be very cognizant of the fact that the transition from AFS to FMS has to go through this transition from a material master model to an article master model. So it is very different, and it's a very critical, it's a very good question. It's a very critical point that we need to take a look at during implementations.
Thank you. We'll take one more. What typical processes are being considered currently under harmonization between retail and fashion?
Quite a few processes. Like I said, we will take a take it into a little more detail, but on a high level, the key processes are around ATP. The key processes are around sales orders and manufacturing, as well as pricing and promotions. These are the key processes that are falling under the harmonization, and it's an important. It's kind of important to understand that these processes need the harmonization because AFS and fashion works very differently from retail. So the harmonization to support FMS functions is important. Yes. So those specific processes, we'll have another session to go into the details for that.
Sure. Thanks, Rahul. We have a few more, but we'll address them individually on a case-to-case basis in the interest of time. Thank you once again, everyone, for joining in for today's webinar, and thank you once again, Rahul, for the wonderful presentation.
Sure.
Thank you, one and all. See you in our next webinars. Take care.